The following presentation is a gift from the team at Streamline Publishing, publishers of Fine Art Connoisseur, Plein Air Magazine, and weekly newsletters Fine Art Today, Realism Today, Plein Air Today, and American Watercolor, and events the Plein Air Convention and the Figurative Art Convention. We offer over 400 different art instruction tutorials and ultra high quality video by the world's leading artists. If you like what you see, help us support our artists and our team with your purchase. Each video aired has a special discount code for today only in the comments section with a link to the video offered. And to see everything we do, or if you want to receive notice of new releases, new products, and new events for artists, simply click the other link, which says, "See everything we do." Thank you.
Hi, I'm Eric Rhodes, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazines. Thank you for being here today. We have a classic for you today, one of the early videos created by Scott Burdick. This is techniques for portrait and figure drawing.
Well, I'm in Susan's studio, my wife, and we're going to do some drawing. And I'm going to go over just a few methods right now of just all kinds of different strategies that you can use to try and get your proportions correct. Now I have a photo here which I think will be a little easier on the camera to actually see when we talk about head measuring and the various measuring methods that you can use. Now, when you do quick sketches, we'll go through that later, and that's a little bit differently. You're doing it more visually measuring, but in my mind I'll be using these same methods as far as lining things up straight up and down and across and the various things. So first let's talk about vertical and horizontal alignments. Okay, that's probably the most important part of drawing, is lining things up and down and straight across. So take this photo for example. Now when I'm drawing this, let's forget about the actual proportions first, and let's just talk about vertical and horizontal. Say I get down to drawing this hand here. Now, I want to find something, say we've already drawn the face out, okay, and that's all correct. Now, what we'll do is we'll measure everything else off of the face that is going down. So, say I'm going to draw this here. Now this, I would hold up my pencil, my charcoal, straight up and down, and I would look along this line. Okay, say let's look along this outside line, and I would look along and I'd say straight up and down, where does that line up with? You can see how it just comes a little bit over from the lips. So that when I'm drawing it over here, say I have the head over here, and I have the lips here and the nose there, then I would just go here and I would go straight down and make a mark. And that will give me where that corner here of the wrist is. And then I would do the same thing with, say, the hands. I'd find where the farthest finger out is on the ear. Go straight up and down. So on my drawing, I would go to the ear, and I'd go straight down and make a mark there. And the same thing with all the things that line up. Now, once you get to areas that, say, go beyond what you have drawn, how do you figure those out? Straight up and down. So the way you're going to figure those, say, now I want to figure out where the tips of this finger is out here. I can either draw a line straight down from here, okay, and then this is on my subject, so I'd be looking straight down and I'd say, okay, where is straight down from the tip of the nose? So I'd go down and I'd say it comes right to about there. So then I would take a measurement on the model. I'd put the tip of my pencil at the hand, and then I would drag this back to that point on the arm, which is straight down. And then I would turn it vertically, and I would compare it now to the face. I would put that mark at the bottom of the chin, and I'd go up and say it goes up to the top of the hair. Right here, right into the middle part. So then on my drawing, where I've got the head all drawn already, I will do the opposite thing. And I would put the tip of this here right up at the top of the hair, and then I would drag it down to there. I go down that line again, and then I would find it, and that would give me where the tip of the finger is. Now, to make this a little less confusing, I want to show you what you're actually doing, okay? When you're doing head measuring method, it's basically a grid system, okay? So let's say we're going to take this drawing and we're going to blow it up to this size. We're going to go a little larger. Now, say Maria is actually posing for us from life. What I would do is I would hold my arm straight out, okay? And you don't want to bend it, because then as you move it, it can come back and forward and you'll actually lose your measurement. So it'll actually change what this will appear. So I hold this straight out from me. Now Maria's our model. I hold it straight out and I'm looking at her and I'm putting this at the very tip top of her head. And then I'm dragging this down to the chin. So that's going to be 1 unit. Now I go down here and I see where my thumb is now, and that'll be my 2nd unit. And I'll actually make a mark on here. Let me get something that'll actually make a mark on there. Let's get a China marker here. So we'll do this, and we'll go down and we'll make a mark. Now, since this is a photo, I can actually make a mark and see it. Now, if I'm working from life, I can actually make a mark, which you're going to see. So that's another unit. And then down here, it goes a little bit off the page, so it's maybe, say, a little bit more than a half. So I'll remember that. So we've got 1 with the head, 2, 3, and just a little bit more than a half. Now I'm going to measure the width. So starting from, say, her nose, tip of her nose, I'll have that be 1 unit here. And then out here comes right to the edge of the canvas. So then I'll go over here, and this is almost a square for the back of her head. Then another unit out here, and that goes a bit off the paper. So basically what we're doing is we're creating a visual grid, all right? So if you were to continue these lines straight up and down, you have a grid. All right, you go across from the chin, and across from the top of the head, across here, across here. Okay, so basically we're dividing up into squares. Now you can divide it up into big general squares like this, which is about what I would use as a head for a figure. Or you can go smaller squares. You could say go from the top of her eyebrow to the bottom of her chin, and then you would divide these up into smaller squares. The more you get like that, the more, the more detail you can get and the easier it is to draw. So what some artists do, artists like Mancini, a very famous artist, they would actually build a grid in their studio that had string on it, and it would create all the squares, and they would actually put it in front of the model, whole model setup, okay, and they have all these strings, and then they would have their canvas, and you could actually just draw charcoal lines. Now you have to make sure the canvas is the same proportions as your grid. So if you want more of a vertical one, you'll have to use more of a vertical grid, more horizontal or more square. And so then he would put that in front of it, and then in his painting he would actually have another grid with string, and he would put that over his painting, and then he would look in there, like say we had this divided up into very small little squares, a really detailed grid. Okay? Then he would look in here and he would just paint this abstract shape of, say, the chin. And you just, in here, in that square, he would just paint it. So he never ever had to worry about proportions. Okay? It just came out exactly right, because you have a grid. It's just like a mathematical way of blowing something up. So he would just paint the abstract little shapes of each of these things. And he was really going for that abstract quality, so he didn't want to have to be worrying about trying to draw it out, and he really wanted that brush strokes to just be blobs of paint. So we're doing that same sort of thing, and you can do that with a grid, or you can just do it visually with the head measuring. So now on here, what I need to do, now this is larger than this is, okay? So I need to find a unit that is we're going to be blowing her head up a bit. I need to find a unit that will go into this properly. So now we've said we want a little room at the top, and we want 1, 2, 3 and a half, little bit more units. So what I do is I take some sort of pencil, and I go a little bit down from the top, and I'll just try this, see if this works. 1, 2, 3 and a half. So that unit is too small. Okay, so I need a bigger one. So I go a little bit further down and I test that out. 1, 2, 3. So a little bit more than that, and I think we'll have it. So 1, 2, 3, and that should be just about perfect. So now that I found that, you just keep testing it until you find one that goes right. So we'll go 1, and just mark it out on our canvas. 2, 3, and then this kind of goes off the page. So this should be the bottom of our page here then. And then I would do the same thing horizontally. Go from the edge of the page here. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and so now we've already figured out where her head is, so that means that this will be the bottom of the chin, that'll be the top of the head, and then it's a matter of, now if you start worrying about getting exactly, say, where the little details are, I might take another measurement and say, find the center. So just above her eyebrow will be the center. So now I can just divide this in half, and you can either find a unit that will go in half, or you can just take a piece of paper that's that size and fold it. So that's a little bit longer. So we'll find our halfway mark there, and then that means that the eyebrows are a little bit below that, and that's going to be the nose, so the eyebrow will be here. So this isn't going to be a detailed drawing, but just enough so you can see how you would draw something out with the head measuring method. Okay, so that's how you would then start drawing out these shapes. Okay. And then we remember that the back of the head came just about to this here, so the cloth would be over here. So it's really a very, very simple, almost mathematical way of blowing something up. Now, there are so many other methods, and we'll just touch on those. This is the one that I use, so this is what I'm going to spend the most time talking about here. Okay, and then you would just continue down to all the same things. This mark here would be where that flower is, then I'd look straight up and down, and it lines up with the tip of the nose. So I'd come down right to here, and I would just do that. Now in a photo, you can actually just draw a grid out if you want, or put a piece of plastic over it and draw a grid. Now if you're wanting to get something to be exactly the same proportions, say I wanted this square, and I'm not sure what canvas size I want it to be. I want it to be exactly the proportions of this photograph, all right? There's several ways you can do that. One way is you can take your height. So say this is 10 inches high here by 6 inches, okay? And say I know I want my canvas to be 20 inches high. You basically say, okay, well then that's 2 times this, and then you have to times that. You have to times both sides by the same thing, okay? So then you would say then this side is going to have to be 12 inches. So it'll be 12 inches by 20 inches to be double that size. So just remember, whatever size you have in here has to be multiplied. Now another way you can do it is you can put this down. If I put this in the corner and I put a straight edge right across the corners and I draw it straight across the edge all the way up there, wherever this intersects from down here straight across here and you go up, wherever that intersects, if you just use a T-square and make that straight, that will give you the same proportions, okay, when you blow it out. And that's something a lot of people use when they actually grid out a photo really detailed. They won't use this kind of head measuring method. What they'll do is, say this is our photo here. Okay, let's draw a photo out here. Now another way you can do it is, rather than trying to use the head or any actual object in your picture, you just start. This is what we used to have to do in art school when we started out in fundamentals, when we would do from photos. You draw a straight edge across here and across here. Now you have to make sure to make these really accurate. You actually use a T-square or a triangle, and then you draw a straight line there and a straight line there, and then you divide these up more and more. You can go all the way across, or what you can do is just take a one particular square and make it more detailed. So say most of this is just grass, but up here you have like a shepherd and some cows. So maybe this part up here is what you would do more detailed. So you would draw your grids more detailed in this area, and you can go into infinity. You can go as detailed as you want. Then say you're blowing it up to this size paper here. You just continue this straight across. All right. And this is all basic stuff. Probably most of the advanced artists know this. So you draw that across, and that'll give you the size of your large paper. And then you just do the same thing. You just draw the number of squares you have on here on your large paper, and then whatever is in, say, let's see here. Let's do this and this. Let's get this to be the same here. So then whatever is in this thing here, you draw that, you up here, and you just draw that just as you see it in there. Okay? So drawing is mechanical. It's nothing, the proportions are just mechanical. It's not the least artistic part about painting and being an artist, okay? But it's very much like if you're going to be a writer and you have this incredible story in mind to tell. Now, until you learn grammar and spelling, you can't tell it, all right? And that's what drawing is about, all these basics. You have to learn them so that you can tell your story. All right, so that's the method that I mainly use. I really don't use this gridding out method. Even when I'm working from a photo, I just take general head measuring methods, but it's up to you which you want to use. Let's go over one other, which is very popular, like with artists who are going in the mode of like Bouguereau and the ateliers, and that will be the site size method. Let me get this set up here first. Okay, so the other major method that artists use when doing life drawing and figure work especially is the site size method. So I'm just going to use these brushes in the background here to just give you an idea of what that is. So we had measured this out to blow up a photo. But the site size method is, say this is a figure, okay, a model in the background. What you do is you set your canvas up or your drawing paper, whatever it is, and you move yourself forward or backwards until you get the model to be the right size that you want on your paper. So that's what it means, site size. It's the same size as you're actually seeing it next to your paper. And then the way you do your proportions with that is, see how I'm holding my pencil straight out now, my charcoal, and the top of those brushes. So I go right across from the top of those brushes, and then I make a mark up here. Now that might extend all the way into the paper. Say I'm going to draw the brushes over here. So then I go down here to where the lip of the brushes are. And so I make a mark there. And then down to the very bottom, I make a mark there. So say there, and all along this brush handle, we can go to the tip of the brush handle here and to kind of the end there. So you get all your marks. You don't even have to head measure it out because the proportions of that to this are the same. And so then you just extend those across to where we're going to be drawing it. And most people will actually hold a very long, straight edge. Like I've seen some people use like a bicycle spoke, something to hold straight across. Some people like to use a ruler and they'll hold it straight across, and so then they'll make their marks very carefully over here. Now that gives you your height. Now as far as the width of this, then what you do is you hold your pencil. You can either hold your pencil straight out here and you actually measure this here. Make sure it's right next to your paper so that it's the same size. Then when you have that measurement, you can move it over here and you make your marks according to that. Okay? And then you would just go ahead and draw on that. But whenever you need to take a measurement, you can just take it right off of the model, and that unit translates exactly to what you're drawing. So that's really the main other method. And you'll see that in like ateliers where they're really going for more of that finished, polished, classical sort of look. So that's really all there is to measuring. Of course, as Mr. Parks would say, he's going to tell us all these things the first day of class, and it's going to take us a lifetime to really learn them. So, but once you get really used to doing it, and don't short shrift yourself. Don't, especially in the very beginning, really learn how to draw extremely accurately. Measure everything out. Do some drawings that take you the whole week. We did that in life drawing for several years, where you're just sharpening these really carefully, making your marks just really carefully. I mean, they're not as artistic. They're studies. They're academic studies. You make these marks really, and it might take the whole day just to draw the head out. And then you go down to your next mark and you draw everything out just very carefully. You're not using big, thick strokes like that, because then you don't know where is the exact line. Mr. Parks in our class, we had to sharpen these down to just the tiniest fine point, so that when you made a line, you knew exactly where that was. And you measured, checked your horizontals and verticals all the time. If you have trouble, sometimes you don't want to, it's hard to hold this straight up and down. You maybe will cheat it. So you can take a piece of string with a weight on it and use that as a plumb line. Hold that up, and then that won't cheat. It'll be straight. Or even just through the very center of the pose, hold a hang from the ceiling. Hang a piece of string with a weight on it, and then you'll have that straight, so that when you hold up your pencil and you check it, you'll be able to look at that. You'll see if you have it straight or not. So the only other one I can think of is where a lot of people like to just, rather than doing head measuring, they'll go halves. So say this is a model here, and I'm sure you can tell from this that I'm a very accomplished artist. All the training and stuff that went into this. What they'll do is they'll take the pose and they'll find half. They'll say, where's halfway mark? You go, say here, and you just test it out until you get it. A little farther. So that's about halfway. So that'll give you the halfway mark, and then maybe they'll divide those into halves, and then for the width they'll do the same thing. They'll say, where's the halfway mark on the pose? And then half of that. And if you need more detail, then you can have those even more. And you just do the same thing you're drawing. You have your drawing pad. This is the top, this is the bottom. This is your extremes of where you want the pose, the top of the head, and this to be. You just find the half mark there, and you find that half mark, and then the same with the sides. And then that'll help you to position exactly where things go. So that's the basics of measuring. Not the most exciting part of it, but something we all have to know. Okay. Alrighty. We're going to do some demonstrations of figure drawing, some shorter poses, longer poses, and just go through all the different sorts of materials as well. This is my setup. I really like to stand generally when I'm doing the quick sketches and drawings. And our model, Scarlett, who comes usually once a week if our schedule and hers works out, so that it just keeps you on your toes, keeps you in practice. So I'd say once a week is almost the minimum to keep yourself sharp in doing just doing the quick sketches. Even though most of these aren't anything that I send out to the galleries, sometimes they come out very nice, and you might want to include one in a show. But generally, the galleries are looking for the larger oil paintings. But to keep good in your drawing, you have to continue to practice that. Now, this is my setup, just a simple easel, and this is a quick sketch pad for doing just. I can do charcoal, I can do contact crayon, China marker on this sort of a pad. And then I have, just as I do when I paint, I have kind of a green mat, which I got from the YMCA to cushion. So when I stand on it all day, I don't get so tired. We also have the same mat underneath a cloth where Scarlett is posing. That way it just makes it easier when you're posing on the ground, partly for it getting cold as well, just have something soft on there. You can also, if you have a bigger group, you can build a model stand to get the model up higher, so that if you have people sitting in the front row, standing in the back row, that will help you. I also have my hat, which I'll put on to just block out the lights from above when I'm drawing. That helps me just focus in on the values that I see on the model. And otherwise, without it, the lights, she actually looks quite a bit darker to me because these are so light. My eye is closing down. So when I put that down right away, I can see the values much better. So let's go through just setting up a few poses and I'll just go through the same process that we would if we were doing this on our weekly session, where I would do a series of just 1 minute sketches. And that's just to loosen you up. Then we go to maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10, and then maybe we'll end up with some 15 and 25-minute sketches using some various mediums. So all right, let's just try a few poses. This lighting here, we're using a north window in my wife's studio, as well as the lights that are just above it, that are the color-balanced daylight fluorescent bulbs. And since they're right above the window, they're giving us the same direction. So you can see nice, strong direction. All right, let's start and do some of these quick ones. Now these are really just warm-up. So just these 1 minute ones, and we'll have a timer that'll just tell us, and it just will reset. And basically just going very light through the figure. Light touch, just going for the large a large movement. This angle here of the spine, where the hips are, and kind of this leg, just looking at the large angle. And this leg here, you might not get any farther than that, and that's fine. It's just to loosen you up. Very light touch. If I have time, you'll see as we get to the longer ones, I'll start going to the heavier touch. This is just, don't want to get too literal. That's the problem. If you go right into the real long ones, you'll just start getting so slow and careful, and you'll forget to get this large movement first. So these will kind of loosen you up, and hopefully you'll continue to kind of start your bigger ones out thinking of the large masses and shapes. And if I start getting the whole thing down, then I might just start heaving up a few lines and going a little more precisely, but I won't get far with this because these are just quick ones. So there. That's plenty of information for a 1-minute pose. Sometimes I'll start a little bit more with the shadow pattern here. And just kind of mask these, use the side of it, mask these shadow areas to give me the thing. See how that line from the knee goes right down through the shoulder? Since these are so quick, I don't have time to really hold my pencil up straight up and down like I would in a long pose. I'm still doing that visually with my eye. That's all I'm really intending for these quick ones. You don't try and do a whole portrait. Don't get frustrated and think, God, I got to get the whole thing done. Okay, great pose. Now, this is a China marker, so it's basically just like a grease pencil. It's you can't erase it, and that's fine for these quick sketches. The nice thing about it is it comes in all different colors, so you can use red, brown, green. You can even, if you want, sort of start out with a light color, and then you can go to, say maybe a really light orange or really light brown, and you could just sketch out your design like this. And then once you say you had enough of your gesture done, then maybe you could go to a darker brown. And then you could draw right over the top of that, and it won't kind of, and then you could even go to black if you wanted over the top of that for accents. That way your initial sketch marks, won't throw you off. Now, I generally just use the one color for most of it, and then heavy up my line. Okay, you can try another one. So. All right, so let's start this one now. All right, and again, just these quick ones, you just go for the large shapes. They're just kind of loosening up, reminding you not to get caught up in little details. And still have fun with the line and just kind of the dance of it. See how abstract you can be with this and still make it look like what's there. Get a sense of the pose. So how few lines you can use to get a feeling of that. Again, and also let's just to emphasize for when you're practicing these is that light touch that you're going to go for. That is something that my tendency is to want to almost go a little harder just so you can see it more clearly, but I'm going to make sure on this to just do that light touch that I would do working on my own. And that is something that was emphasized to us in life drawing class, was acquiring that sort of that sort of light touch, and you use it. It gives you a lot of control, and you'll use that a lot when you're doing your long poses, to start things out, to sketch them out very carefully. And don't worry, if I don't get the whole thing in, that's okay, if I don't get all the details. See that light touch? See how that will give me the opportunity, if when I'm doing the longer ones, to go in and put in the harder line like that. Okay, so that all that doesn't just overwhelm, that initial sketching doesn't overwhelm all that. So we can get all the cameras and everything in here and have a nice shot from behind. I'm a little bit closer than I would normally be in my studio, because normally I would be way back right against the wall, and I would be doing a little smaller sketches on some of these, but it's no problem. I'm not trying to fight and make them that size, you know, and because it doesn't matter. It's nice to do these sketches larger. The main thing is generally you want to get yourself to the distance where you're approximately drawing sight size. Sometimes, maybe just for practice, you can say, okay, I'm going to do some drawings that are smaller or larger than sight size, but your mind's general tendency will be to make everything sight size. And that means just that if I were to draw a line straight across from where I see the model in the background, they'll line up right on the paper. Cool. Fun pose. All right. So I'm starting out with this arm here. Just go for the gesture of this whole torso, kind of where the hips are. I'm pulling that down. See how I'm kind of using large sweeps and angles. You can sometimes it's very good to think more angular at the beginning. Try and get those big angles, because if you get caught up in these little curves, you will tend to get them wrong. Just like a surveyor, when they do a road, they'll first think just a few big points and angles straight, and then they'll make the curve of the road later on. Sometimes you'll want to even emphasize the movement, which is what I'm doing here. I'm just kind of emphasizing that twist even a little bit more, to give a little bit more action to it. Nice pose. This lighting is just so nice, this soft north light. The colors are great, but for our purposes here, it's really just the values. So starting out with a few simple shapes, kind of in the middle, give me areas to measure both ways. I follow this line down here. See how far does that go before it changes direction? It goes that way. And that there. Looking across visually from here to here, see where this point comes. Everything is measuring, even if you're not holding your brush up with a quick sketch like this. It's measuring straight across, up and down. How far does that knee come? And that leg will come out to there. Foot. And just take your time. This is just practice. If you don't finish it, it doesn't matter. The important thing is to only go as fast as you can with accuracy. That's directly from Mr. Parks. I just love that. You can see that whole movement from the head to the leg. So I'll kind of start with that. It's such a nice line. If you get that angle right, you're going to be on the right track right from the start. Just kind of indicate where the head is. Don't get caught up in painting a portrait. Now, what's the angle of that? Is it straight up and down? Is it slightly off center? Angle of the shoulders here. Where does the shoulder start? Just above where the eyebrow would be. So I'm just going to kind of give you just a stream of consciousness of what I'm thinking. Thinking, okay, here, and where does that line up with where this part comes? Just slightly over. So we'll go there. And the angle between these two breasts here. And then down to here, just one shape to the other and relating each. I'm looking at the angle from here to here now. When I find this point, then that'll go down there. this is just a series of straight angles and lines. Just remember what your goal is with these. It's not to finish them. It's not to get every single thing. It's just to loosen up and to start observing large shapes correctly. Some people hate these quick ones because they feel like, God, I don't have enough time to get everything done. But that's not the purpose of these. So like here, I'm not even worried about getting down to this leg here. I'm going to really like the angle of this torso. See how I'm using really straight lines? Sometimes I'll go more for curvy, sometimes for straight. All right, so we'll do some 3-minute ones now. And the same way to start. I'm going to start out in the same manner, going for these large things. Very light touch. This big shape here, that's the key. Just continue it right through, and then I come in a little bit for where this torso area is here. It's all a series of simple patterns. Where the spine is. All this in here, it's kind of in the shadow. Just kind of put something down there to indicate that. Where the knee is. Some people like to carry this stage a lot farther, and other people will just do a very simple few indications, and that'll be enough. You can find your own balance. The main thing is the mental operation of when you're drawing it, every single line and stroke you put down, you're comparing it to other things that you've already put down. You're seeing, where is it straight across? Where is it up and down? Where does this angle here come to up here? So everything is related. So that's the key to drawing, is each stroke is compared visually. You don't look at only one area by itself in isolation. So like here, I was looking for where I have the head coming down to here, and I was saying, well, I was starting to get too big of a distance between here and there. So that'll force me to keep me from slowly getting these hands and arms longer and longer. And you just keep working those. You try and catch them right at the start if you're going astray. That'll be enough. Then once I get to that point, that's just about enough. I'll put a little bit of where the feet would be in here. I'm going straight across from where I have the hands, and they're just a little bit above that, so that'll be the tip of the foot. That'll be enough to just get me on track there. Then once I've got that, then I'll take, say, an area that I just find interesting, and I'll just start working a little bit slower, still just simple shapes, and I just start defining it. This is like a Y and the T principle, where that one muscle comes in front of another muscle here. Shoulder here. There we go.
Well, that was figure and portrait drawing with Scott Burdick, and you can learn more about it at lilyartvideo.com. There's a special discount code in the comments section. Make sure to look for that. Thank you for watching today.